What if I told you that Edgar Cayce, the most famous medium in American history, revealed something in his insights that radically changes our understanding of consciousness at the moment of cremation? In his famous insight number 57,564, given in 1932, Cayce revealed something so astonishing it shocked even his personal stenographer. He spoke of what the soul experiences during the cremation of the body. But before we delve into these discoveries, which could fundamentally change the way you perceive death, subscribe to this channel and click the bell. We intend to explore verified spiritual truths that can forever transform your understanding of consciousness and the afterlife.
And be sure to let me know in the comments if you've ever had spiritual experiences that defy logical explanation. Today, I'll share 3 astonishing revelations from Edgar Cayce's insights regarding cremation and the soul's journey. First, what actually happens to the spirit body during cremation, according to insight number 13,618. Second, why Cayce claims the timing of cremation is far more significant than it seems, based on his insight for a grieving family in Virginia Beach. And third, the unexpected connection between cremation and reincarnation, which Cayce revealed in over 40 past life insights. But the biggest shock is yet to come. In that very epiphany, number 57,564, when a grieving mother asked Cayce if her late son had experienced pain during cremation, his answer was so unexpected that it upended thousands of Americans' understanding of death and consciousness. The fact is, Edgar Cayce didn't make assumptions. From 1901 to 1944, he recorded 14.36 recorded epiphanies in deep trance states. These weren't mere spiritual conjectures. Every word was meticulously transcribed by professional stenographers. Today, all of these materials are housed in the archives of the Association for Research and Education in Virginia Beach, Virginia. When Cayce entered a trance, he said he tapped into the so-called Akashic records. Imagine a cosmic library containing all the thoughts, feelings, and experiences of every soul who ever lived. Through this connection, he could answer questions about death, consciousness, and life after death with astonishing accuracy. And then comes the most astonishing part. In insight number 13,618, which he conducted for a family who were unsure whether to choose cremation, Cayce explained that the soul feels no physical pain during the cremation process, because by that point, consciousness has already separated from the body. But then he added something that completely changes our understanding of the dying process. He said there's a transitional stage, which he called the border zone. During this time, the soul still maintains a subtle connection with the body. This period can last from 3 days to several weeks. During this time, the soul gradually adapts to its new state. But what's truly astonishing is this. Cayce claimed that during this stage, the soul can be aware of what's happening with its physical body. However, these are unusual physical sensations. It's more like a distant awareness, like remembering a dream. In insight number 272, Cayce was directly asked whether cremation hinders the soul's journey. His answer was revolutionary. He said that cremation, on the contrary, helps the soul release attachment to the body more quickly than traditional burial. Cayce explained that fire during the cremation process plays not only a physical role but also an energetic one. It helps the soul purify itself and ascend to a higher level of consciousness. But here's what's not widely known. The timing of cremation is crucial. In the same insight we discussed earlier, number 57,564, Cayce explained that if cremation is performed too quickly, within the first 27 to 3 days after death, the soul may experience not pain, but something he called confusion. This state occurs because the soul has not yet fully separated from the body. To understand this in practice, let's consider one documented case. In 1936, a woman from Norfolk, Virginia, approached Cayce about her husband, who had died suddenly in a car accident. The family arranged for cremation immediately after his death, but the woman was plagued by dreams in which her husband appeared confused and depressed. During Epiphany number 17,862, Cayce confirmed that her husband's soul had indeed been confused. This was because the cremation of the body had occurred too quickly, before the consciousness had time to fully process its departure from the body. Cayce noted that sudden death requires more time for the soul to adapt and complete its separation from the physical shell. However, there was a silver lining to this story. Cayce reassured the widow, telling her that her prayers and loving thoughts were actually helping her husband adjust more quickly to his new state. Indeed, several weeks after the Epiphany, the disturbing dreams ceased, and images of her husband appearing calm and peaceful began to appear. This brings us to an even more profound discovery Cayce made about the connection between cremation and reincarnation. In over 40 past life insights, he stated, "How we treat the body after death can affect the next incarnation, but not in the way most people think." According to Cayce, cremation, if performed at the right time and with conscious spiritual intention, facilitates the soul's liberation from earthly attachments. These attachments, he explained, are mental and emotional ties that hold the soul down, preventing it from ascending to a higher level of consciousness. And here's what's particularly interesting in this context. In insight number 26,286, Cayce was asked whether subsequent incarnations differ for those who choose cremation from those who prefer traditional burial. His answer was surprising. He said that the manner in which the body is disposed of does not determine the reincarnation scenario. Everything depends on the consciousness and level of spiritual development of the individual. However, he made an important clarification. Souls who consciously choose cremation as part of their spiritual beliefs often already possess an inner detachment from the material, which helps them move more quickly between lives. But Cayce's astonishing revelation doesn't end there. In insight number 57,493, he explained that the soul doesn't simply leave the body at death. In fact, consciousness passes through 7 sequential stages of transition. And cremation, he claimed, can accelerate these stages by removing the anchor, the physical body, that holds the soul's attention on the earthly plane. Let's examine these 7 stages because they can forever change your perspective on death. The first stage begins at the moment of dying. The soul begins to separate from the body. Cayce compared this to awakening from a deep sleep. Suddenly, one realizes that the physical form is no longer necessary. The second stage involves a review of one's life. This period can last from several hours to several days. It is not a judgment, but rather a learning process, when the soul comprehends the lessons learned during its earthly incarnation. The third stage is a choice. Here the soul decides whether to move further to higher dimensions or remain closer to the earthly plane. Cayce explained that souls strongly attached to earthly things often remain close to the physical world during this stage. And this is where fire takes on special significance. Cayce claimed that the flame during cremation becomes a symbolic portal through which the soul more easily passes through the following stages: the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. And now something that will surprise you even more. In insight number 1947.3, Cayce was asked, "Does cremation affect the soul's ability to communicate with the living?" His answer defied popular belief. He claimed that cremation, on the contrary, enhances the soul's ability to communicate with those left behind on earth. Why? Because the energetic connection with the decomposing body is broken. When a body is buried in the earth, according to Cayce, part of the soul's energy can remain attached to the physical shell. This creates interference with spiritual communication, a kind of energetic noise. But after cremation, the soul is completely freed from matter, and this allows it to communicate more clearly with loved ones through dreams, meditation, and other spiritual manifestations. Let me share with you a documented story that vividly confirms the principles Edgar Cayce spoke of. In 1941, a woman from Virginia Beach experienced epiphany number 37,442 after her daughter died of pneumonia. The family decided to cremate the body, despite the protests of relatives who believed it would prevent them from feeling the girl's presence. But Cayce revealed something entirely different. He said this decision was inspired by the daughter's very soul. She wanted to free herself from physical attachments, so she could continue to help her family from the spirit world. And indeed, just a few months after the cremation, her loved ones began to experience vivid dreams and receive signs. Their daughter not only found peace, but also watched over them, supporting them. But then came an even deeper revelation from Cayce, one related to cremation and consciousness. In insight number 57,564-14, he explained that the process of cremation represents a spiritual cleansing. It helps the soul shed not only the physical shell, but also mental and emotional patterns that no longer serve its highest good. He offered a simple analogy. When clothes become too small or inappropriate, we give them away or throw them away. So it is here. According to Cayce, cremation helps the soul transfer the body back to the universe, while preserving love and lessons that will be useful in future incarnations. This is why he often recommended cremation to those who dedicated their lives to spiritual development and service to others. Cayce claimed that such souls were ready to release their attachment to the material world and advance further along the path of spiritual growth. But what about the fear many experience regarding cremation? In insight number 13,683, Cayce answered this directly. He said that fear of cremation is most often based on a misunderstanding of the nature of consciousness. Many fear that cremation will somehow harm the soul or even destroy it. But Cayce explained that consciousness is completely separate from the body. He used a beautiful metaphor. The soul and body are like a person and their home. When a person leaves a house, they don't disappear, even if the building is destroyed. Likewise, the soul continues to exist regardless of what happens to the body after death. Now consider this. Cayce claimed that people who practiced spiritual disciplines during life, such as meditation, prayer, or selfless service, experience death and transition completely differently than those who focused solely on the material. In insight number 14,720.12, he explained, "Spiritually evolved people often experience death not as a loss, but as a joyful release. For such souls, cremation becomes a true celebration of the completion of the earthly journey." But how can one prepare for one's own death and transition? Cayce answered this in insight number 57493-6. He said, "The best preparation is not avoiding death or fearing it, but living a conscious spiritual life and helping others every day." Souls who develop their spiritual gifts during life and use them for good have a much easier time transitioning, whether through cremation or traditional burial. And here's another stunning discovery. In insight number 374, Cayce explained, "Souls themselves participate in choosing the time and manner of their departure from the physical body. This means that if you feel an inner pull toward cremation, perhaps your soul knows that this is what will help you transition and advance in your spiritual development. Now, let's talk about how all of this relates to your spiritual growth right now. Cayce taught that understanding death and the afterlife isn't just about preparing for your own transition. It's about understanding the very nature of consciousness and how to use this knowledge to live a more fulfilling and spiritual life today. In insight number 25468, Cayce explained that souls who understand the temporary nature of physical existence are more likely to develop their spiritual abilities and serve others. Such people tend to live with inner peace and joy because they are not tormented by the fear of death. But his most important message about cremation and spiritual development isn't about choosing between cremation and burial. In insight number 57562.627, he emphasized that it's not the method of parting with the body that matters, but the consciousness and intention with which this choice is made. Most importantly, the decision is made with love, spiritual understanding, and concern for the soul's future journey. Moreover, if loved ones choose cremation with a sincere desire to help the soul continue its development, then their prayers and kind thoughts truly facilitate this process. And here we reach a very profound level. Cayce's teachings on cremation can change the way you practice spirituality today. He said that reflecting on the nature of consciousness and life after death helps develop what's known as spiritual vision. This is the ability to perceive the spiritual dimensions of reality while still in the body. In insight number 26215, Cayce gave specific meditation recommendations aimed at developing this perception. He advised meditating at least briefly daily on the fact that physical existence is temporary, but consciousness is eternal. This practice, he said, helps one live with greater spiritual awareness and less fear of death. And this is especially important for your spiritual path here and now. Cayce taught that souls who embrace the idea of reincarnation and the continuity of consciousness are more likely to experience inner peace and a sense of meaning in life. They understand that every experience, every encounter, and even every difficulty is an opportunity for soul growth. In insight number 1947.4, he explained, "This understanding allows us to perceive even the most challenging life situations with wisdom and compassion. We cease to be victims of circumstances and begin to see challenges as opportunities for inner transformation. Everything becomes part of the soul's journey of learning and growth." So, how can you apply Edgar Cayce's teachings on cremation and consciousness in your spiritual practice? First and foremost, set aside time for meditation, reflecting on the nature of consciousness and its connection to the body. According to Cayce, This helps us become more spiritually aware and less attached to material things. Secondly, send kind thoughts and prayers to your deceased loved ones, whether they were cremated or buried. Cayce explained that the love and light we send to the souls of departed loved ones truly assists them on their spiritual journey. This invisible support strengthens the eternal bond between souls, which does not end with the death of the body. Thirdly, his revelations teach us to live more consciously in the present moment. When we truly understand that consciousness is eternal and physical existence is only temporary, we begin to focus on what matters most: spiritual growth and service to others. Finally, it's worth considering how your personal views on death and the afterlife influence your daily spiritual practice. Cayce said that fear of death often prevents people from fully realizing their spiritual abilities and living with their true purpose. But the truth he discovered about cremation and consciousness is a true gift, capable of changing everything. The key realization is that death is not an end, but a transformation. Understanding this truth can free us from fear and teach us to live with greater awareness and deeper meaning. And as we conclude this journey through Edgar Cayce's astonishing revelations about cremation and the nature of consciousness, I want to leave you with one important thought, taken from insight number 57,493.14. Cayce said, "The soul's journey is endless." Every experience, whether life, death, or transition, is an opportunity for growth and spiritual development. Whether you choose cremation or burial for yourself or your loved ones is not so important. What matters most is that this choice be guided by love, spiritual understanding, and trust in the soul's eternal movement toward higher consciousness. If this information has opened new horizons of spiritual perception for you, subscribe to the channel and click the bell to stay up to date with future videos on prophecy, healing, and reincarnation in the teachings of Edgar Cayce. And be sure to share this video with those who may need this profound knowledge. Your participation helps bring these transformative truths to those who truly need them. Share your thoughts on cremation and consciousness in the comments. Have you had experiences that confirm what Edgar Cayce taught? I read every comment and truly value your stories and experiences. And remember, Edgar Cayce's teachings remind us that we are spiritual beings, temporarily inhabiting a human form, and death is merely a doorway to a new chapter in the soul's endless journey. Understanding this truth can change not only our view of death, but also how we live each precious day of our earthly lives.